HCP Aftermath. This is Monday, Cali X Boxing here with D-Style, and we got a special guest in the house. Appreciate you joining us, Michael. And like I said, open invite anytime. Appreciate you joining us, man. It's a big treat to talk about this past weekend and all the fights. A lot of topics I want to hit on. And first of all, I want to give, I don't normally pay attention to awards. I want to give a special shout out to a guy who's been on our podcast roundtable several times, Lee Groves, who won the Nice Guy Award. Shout out to him. He truly is a nice guy from all the interactions we have from him. So special shout out to him and congratulations. Speaking of awards, let's just hop right into this. I was very pleased with Tim Bradley and Carl Froch getting in the Hall of Fame because to me, they represent everything that's right with the sport. Two guys who every time you put them in these bullshit mythical matchups, they lose all of them, right? I heard this all the time. Carl Froch, I've highlighted this. Carl Froch was an underdog in 8 of his last 12 fights, but somehow won 10 of them. And it perfectly illustrates how when you take fights off of paper and put them into reality, surprise, stuff happens. You know, when you take stuff out of the theoretical world and put them into reality, stuff happens. That's why we hate mythical matchups on this channel. And when guys don't fight the fights, we're not handing them mythical victories over here. We're just not going to do it. But I was happy for Tim. I was happy for Carl that they got in, and they did the right thing by putting those guys in and rewarding the guys who are fighting the fight. So, I mean, just Michael, if you want to take a stab at it first, what did you appreciate most about these fighters in their career?
Well, like you said, man, what you hinted to, these guys fought everybody. I mean, Carl Froch did it on the road. He came over here. You look at when he was in the tournament over here, the Super Six, he made all the concessions. He traveled. Tim Bradley fought everybody. He fought Pacquiao multiple times. He dealt with the blowback when he got that decision in the first fight. And a lot of guys would have just taken that and ran and said, hey, you know, I beat the man, so now I can dictate terms. And what does he do? He goes right back and fights Pacquiao a couple more times. So both of these guys, I completely agree with you. They represent what is great about this sport. And you got to have guys like Bradley. You got to have guys like Froch. Now, Froch fell short to guys like Ward. Bradley fell short to great fighters. Yeah, so they're not quite at that absolute top level, but they're just under there. It's a fraction of a percent that separates these top guys, man. A lot of people don't realize that. Yep. The top 100 fighters in the world are special athletes, and it's just a fraction of a percent that separates them. If you don't have guys, and I'll throw another name out there, one of the guys I voted in, Miguel Cotto. He was one of those guys that, say what you will about the diva tactics, he fought everybody. You got to have those guys. And that's what Carl Froch and Timothy Bradley were. So I'm happy for him, man. I'm glad they got in.
Yeah, and another thing before D-Style takes a stab at this is they went on the road. So Carl Froch went on the road consistently. And another thing is Tim Bradley, he talked about in his Hall of Fame speech, he went on the road to fight Junior Witter, and his wife was like, hey, we got $11 in the bank account, so you better win this fight. They went on the road. They took risks that they were forced into taking, right? Because their ceiling, the eye test didn't really stick out. So they were forced into fights, and they consistently delivered the fights, and they pulled off a lot of upsets. And good for them. I'm glad they're being rewarded. D-Style, what do you think?
To appreciate what Timothy Bradley did, you had to actually follow Timothy Bradley's career. Right. If you're new to the sport of boxing, you go to BoxRec and just read off the names and see what, like, obviously you might not be impressed if that's all you do. Right. But if you captured the moments of Timothy Bradley while he was actually active, right. And you look at the odds and you look at what fans were saying before these fights, a lot of them were 50-50 fights. Right. The whole fight may look like a piece of cake fight if you just look at it on BoxRec. Right. Dropped him, by the way, and got back up. Very similar to the way Ali got back up against Frazier. It was crazy. He just popped back up. Now, that was a crazy shot he got hit with. It would have knocked out 99% of fighters, right? But, like, I favored Bradley in that fight, but it wasn't, at least in that moment, it wasn't like a gimme. A lot of people, many were calling Lamont Peterson the future, right? There was all this talk about the great sparring he had with Floyd and got the best Floyd. And I remember on the lead up to that fight, I think it was a trainer, Lamont, was saying, when I was watching him beat on Floyd in the gym, it was like when Kobe got the best of Jordan in the court, like something like that. And then he gets beat up by Bradley, right? Devin Alexander was undefeated at the time. Like
he was a big favorite.
Yes. And then he goes out there and he just overwhelms the guy. He was a big underdog against Pacquiao. I don't personally think he won that fight, but plenty of great fighters have gotten quote unquote gift decisions. Haney got one the other week, in my opinion, right? So why are we going to punish Bradley, right? When I see fighters get gift decisions all the time. This is my opinion. And lastly, if you weren't convinced by all of that, if you question all of that, then what do you think of him beating Marquez after Marquez got the knockout of the year, in my opinion, against Pacquiao, right? I mean, this was a Marquez. Again, if you look at BoxRec and you see this is a tail end of Marquez's career, look at the age, whatever. But if you actually were following boxing, you would see Marquez was coming off a career-defining win, right?
Bradley was an underdog in that fight, 2-1, 3-1. And nobody expected him to outbox Marquez, which he did.
He did.
Yeah, but that's what people do. Like Teofimo, we'll talk about him later, but he did it. Tang did. A lot of these new young fighters, for some reason, do this to Bradley. I don't know what it is, right? He's not a Hall of Famer. Well, what did he ever do? All he ever did was get a gift decision against Pacquiao, but they can't go over everything I just told you. Yeah. And then there's no pushback from the media. Like, you're supposed to be the ones that know this shit. Mm-hmm. It reminds me of like kind of a side point, but it hits to the media here. Now, this was not boxing media, in fairness, but Devin Haney was on a podcast like 2-3 months ago, and he set the line, and I quote, because one of the interviewers was saying, why can't boxing go back to like when we had Duran and Leonard and Hearns and everybody was fighting each other? And the guy goes, yeah, but Haney. But you see, back then, these guys were fighting for peanuts. Boxing is a business now. We're making a lot more money. I looked it up, and I already knew, but I looked it up. Even without inflation, Leonard was making more money than him. Mm-hmm. I don't need to factor inflation. Now, if I factor inflation, those guys were making the type of money that Teofimo Lopez is asking for to fight Devin Haney right now. Mm-hmm. That's the type of money they were making. You know,
getting sponsorships and doing commercials, going on late night TV, all of it.
Passive income.
And then they were getting it more often because they were fighting more often.
When we see like Canelo in the Super Bowl commercial for 2 seconds, we're like, oh shit, Canelo! And he doesn't even talk. These dudes were in commercials all the time. They were in movies, TV shows. When I was growing up, I know I sound old now. I'm just saying, like, we saw boxers on TV all the time. It wasn't like, oh shit, Sugar Ray Leonard's on TV. It was normal. It wasn't a surprise, you know. It's just a completely different thing now.
Now you only have 3 fighters really making real sponsorship money. And that's Canelo, Golovkin, and AJ. That's it.
And look,
and none of it's American sponsorship.
The point I was going to make is, if Haney said that to me, I would say, with all due respect, Chant, Leonard made a lot more money than you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So did Duran. Right.
Now
so you're not there yet.
Yeah, I want to get to the fights this past weekend because there's a lot to talk about. Let's start from the bottom up. Xander Zayas. The way I like to view Xander Zayas and his development and where he is, and by the way, the youngest fighter ever signed by Top Rank, I think at 16 years old. So they see a lot in him, and there's a lot of marketability there. The way I view him is, obviously Berlanga is not going to be the Puerto Rican guy to highlight the Puerto Rican Day Parade weekend in New York. That's not the guy. Xander Zayas could be that guy. So the way I like to see his development is, when is he going to be the guy to highlight that weekend? Now he's in 8-rounders. I'm pretty sure he'll be in 10-rounders pretty soon. Can he be in that 12-round fight, Puerto Rican Day Parade weekend fight next year? Is it 2025? Where do you guys see him? Is it June 2024 or June 2025? Where do you see him right now in development?
I think he's ready by next June. I think because in this era, you only need 1 10-rounder or something to jump to the 12-round and fight for an interim belt or something like that. And what Top Rank does is very cookie cutter. They have, you know, a Puerto Rican guy, an Irish guy, an Italian guy. You know, they market their fighters that way. If they're military, they market with that angle. So he's going to be their Puerto Rican guy. Top Rank's always had a Puerto Rican fighter that they've highlighted. Mm-hmm. You know, it's a big part of their business. They have a lot of inroads in the media, the Puerto Rican media, a lot of contacts. They know who to contact to promote those fighters. So probably next summer. I mean, you got a whole 12 months. He only needs 1 10-rounder, 2 10-rounders. He could probably highlight that weekend with a 10-rounder, honestly, and just fight at the theater at the Garden. He ain't going to sell out the Garden anytime soon, but he could probably sell out the theater if you marketed it right. And that's all I need to do right now. That's where we're at.
Yep. What do you think, D-Style? 2024 or 2025?
I would say 2024. Like Montero said, I agree with that. Do it at the theater. I like that venue anyway. I like the atmosphere in it. But
it's a fun venue, man.
Yeah, I just watched it on TV. I've never been there in person, but watching it on TV, it looks nice. But here's the thing about Xander. First of all, I did catch the tail end of that fight. He, again, like always, he looks great. He looks the part. Again, we don't know. There has to be that leap of faith at some point for us to find out. But look, I've interviewed Xander before. I've had the privilege to interview him, I think, 3 times now. And the first time I interviewed him, he just had turned 18 years old. And the level of maturity he had was unbelievable. It's rare to see a mature 30-year-old nowadays, much less an 18-year-old, right? It's like rare. And he's just so mature. He's so focused on his boxing. He joked to me about how like his mother is keeping him focused in boxing. He was 18 at the time. And that's his main focus, his main priority. He's with Top Rank. He always wanted to sign with Top Rank, so that was obviously an easy signing for them. And he's all in, and which means like he trusts the system. And why wouldn't he? And the one thing he has is, look, I'm not going to compare him to Tito. That's too high of a bar, at least now. But he's got the charisma of Tito. He's a very charismatic guy, and he speaks English. So they could, if they market him right and Top Rank knows what they're doing, they can go beyond just a Puerto Rican audience.
Agreed.
They can go beyond that if they play their cards right. The thing is that there's some animals moving up from welterweight to 154. 154 has some good fighters. I think Tim Tszyu will be reigning there for a while, in my honest opinion.
Yep.
So I mean, he's going to have some competition, but that's what boxing is all about. I mean, he's going to have to step up at some point. He'll probably eventually either these undisputed belts never last. Like they just don't. Look at what happened to Taylor. He'll get like an interim belt. Like I'm pretty sure he'll get an interim belt at some point. Like I'm confident. Like before they step him up and put him in there with a Tim Tszyu or Jamel or the Towering Inferno, before they put him in there with anybody like that, they will do what they got to do, right? A fight I'm looking forward to, if they're moving them the Top Rank way, and this will be way down the line, and it'll be a great fight down the line for a world title maybe, is Nikita Tszyu against Xander Zayas. I think that could be a big fight down the line.
Yep, I agree. And I think his ceiling is pretty high. And he understands entertainment. He understands marketability. We've talked about that with Morrell Jr. One thing Morrell Jr. gets that the other Cuban fighters don't get is market yourself, learn English because it matters in America. Yep. And on top of that, he understands knockouts. I got to entertain. I can't come in here with an amateur style and pot shot guys to death. I'm going to entertain. I want to knock guys out. A guy that I think highlights the inactivity and not capitalizing on momentum, Jamaine Ortiz. He fought Lomachenko, and when he fought Lomachenko, if anybody got a win that, or a loss that, you can gain momentum off of, it was him. Like people were saying, I think I underrated Jamaine Ortiz. He looked good. He's right outside the top 10. Let's see what he can do. We'd start talking about him possibly fighting Shakur, etc. And he drops the ball and misses weight. What is the deal with Jamaine Ortiz? I think it just highlights the inactivity and the lack of discipline. It was frustrating to see this past weekend Jamaine Ortiz missing weight.
Let me say this. I'll be really brief. This is the problem with boxing culture at the moment. And what I mean by that is guys are not, I hate to use the word punish, but they're not punished enough when they do something unprofessional like miss weight, right? They just aren't. Like, there should be, aside from fines and all that, like there should be scrutiny from the fans when you do something like you don't make the weight. Making weight should be once in a blue moon type of thing. maybe once in your career. Maybe it just won't happen again. I don't think Jermaine's ever missed weight, but it's happening, at least from my vantage point. It's happening far more often in today's boxing than it did before. Right. And what's the excuse exactly? Because the whole point of doing the day before weigh-in, right, is so you could properly rehydrate yourself, but all it's doing is making them dehydrate themselves even more. That's all it's doing, right? So I don't know. I just don't. I have a feeling at some point down the line, right, they're going to start doing these weigh-ins like 48 hours before the fight or something, thinking that's the solution. I don't know. I hope that's never a thing, but there's not enough scrutiny from the fans, in my opinion, when these guys miss weight.
What you think, Mike?
I think the prior day weigh-ins for 6 months or something, it was good. Fighters got to rehydrate, but within a year, fighters use it as a way to make an unnatural weight. You got guys making an unnatural weight, number one, and then on top of that, you add the inactivity. You got to stay active if you want to stay at an unnatural weight. If you're only fighting once a year, because what that Lomachenko fight was like last fall. I can't remember, last September, October. Yep. So it's been over 6 months, right? So if you're making an unnatural weight, man, you got to get in there every 3 months, every 4 months. And when you don't, it catches up to you. At some point, it's going to catch up to you. And I think that's where he's at. So it just shows, some of these guys, their mentality is they have a little bit of success and they get a little bit of media hype, a little bit of buzz, and then they kind of ease up and they think like they've made it. Like, it's like, oh man, I've landed. It's like, nah, dude, you're just starting to launch. You ain't landed yet. You know what I'm saying? The landing is when you're making, 8 figures and shit. The launch is when you start getting the hype. And a lot of these guys just pull up and they chill and relax, just because they got a little bit of hype. And I can't tell you how many fighters I know that, were mid-level guys that would make, get an interim belt, something like that. They'd make 300,000, they'd buy a house, and then they'd be like, oh man, I made it. It's like, dude, you're 28. You're going to live for a long time. You're going to have kids. You need to make more money than that. Yeah, you got a house that's paid off. That's great. But you're going to have to feed these kids for the next 20 years. So
property taxes.
Yeah. Like, it's not that simple, man. So a lot of these guys, they're not getting that advisement. Certain advisors out there are not necessarily advising all of their people very well.
Now they have yes men, Mike. They got yes men now.
Yep.
That's what they got. Shout out our guy Chauncey Pearls. Good morning, fellas. Hope y'all had a good weekend. Appreciate the super chat, my friend. Adrien Broner versus Bill Hutchinson. Circus act. The circus act that we expected. The key thing we've been looking at is what happens next. And Don King is saying all the right things. They want the Ryan Garcia fight at 140. And look, Adrien Broner hasn't fought at 140 in 6 years. So to see a guy who doesn't have much discipline shrinking down to 140 and having something left to actually fight is tough to see. He's fought twice in the past 4.5 years, so it's tough to see him make any kind of run. But if it's going to happen, it's going to be through Golden Boy, right? It's going to be through possible Ryan Garcia fight or a Blair Cobbs type fight, something like that. What's happening at 140, though, is interesting because it gives him a pathway forward, because what's happening at 140 is similar to what's been happening at 135. It's a fractured division in which the top-ranked fighters at 135 were fighting for real hardware, real belts. Tank had his little Pinocchio belt that he was waving around, saying he doesn't care about real belts. And you had sort of this minor league TikTok bullshit circuit going on at 135 where Tank fights the Isaac Cruzes of the world moving up, the Hector Luis Garcias, the Rolly Romeros, which is hilarious. But Rolly Romero now has a real belt. It's funny every time I hear myself say it. He has a real belt at 140 now.
Crazy.
Now, Ryan Garcia is at 140 now. So it leaves a pathway forward for actual winnable fights for Adrien Broner at 140, believe it or not. Do you think he gets these fights and possibly wins them and wins a real title at 140?
I don't know. I mean, if Ryan Garcia and Rolly Romero can happen, and that's what the promotion wants to do, that's going to happen. because they're gonna sell tickets to that. It's gonna be a freak show. If that doesn't happen, then maybe Broner can get in there. You know, I don't know, but like the thing with Broner is he does move the needle to a certain extent, but not like he once did. You know, and nowhere near a guy like Ryan Garcia, who sold the majority of those pay-per-views with Tank. You know, most of those came from Ryan's social media following. So I'd love to see like Adrien Broner or Ryan Garcia just for the freak show. That would be amazing. But I think Ryan and his guys want Rolly Romero, because that is just a marketable fight, and it's a winnable fight for Garcia. In fact, he probably wins that fight by knockout. And then he has a belt, you know, and it also substantiates like Tank's win over him. So like his side would like that too, right? So that's what I see happen. I don't know what Broner is going to do, man, but it's not going to end well for him. I've always sensed that there's going to be some sort of tragic ending with this guy because of just him and the people. Now, dude, if you're with Don King, it's 2023, bro. I mean, Don has been done for like 30 years, bro. So if that's the only guy that will work with you, that kind of shows where he's at, but he still has that name. So he's going to get fights.
Yeah, and look, the big fight, when he's never translated to 147, despite the revisionist history.
Yeah.
Adrien Broner has never won the big fight at 147. He's never going to make a sustainable run at 140. It's just not going to happen. I hope for his case and his family, he somehow leverages himself into one of these fights. It's not going to be Raleigh because Heyman's not going to work with him. But if Ryan can take that belt from Raleigh, and then we get Ryan versus Broner, like you said,
I love
it gives Ryan that pathway, right? To big fight without actually fighting the guys like Regis, Teofimo, even a Josh Taylor coming off of a loss. Ryan doesn't have to fight those fights, and we have a fractured division, right? We got the Circus Act over here, and we got the real fighters fighting for real belts, meaningful fights. We got that fracture at 140 that we had at 135. D-Style, what do you think?
Oh, man. First of all, what was the weight for this fight? Because Broner did not look 140. Like,
I don't think it was 140. I think it's 147.
Was it 140? I didn't even look 147 to me.
No, it wasn't at 140.
The dude looked like he had a couple of Miller Lights or something the night before. I mean, I'm just saying, like he did not look in premier prize fighter shape.
147. I just checked.
Okay, maybe I guess he stepped in the scale, but maybe he took some diuretics or something because he did not look in amazing shape. He just didn't. But look, of course he wants to fight Raleigh. Who wouldn't want to fight Raleigh? You know, like all the other champions are pit bulls, and then you got a Chihuahua over there with a belt. Like, well, who do you think the dogs are going to go after? Like, well, I want that guy. You know what I mean? Like, what do you mean? That's like easy mode. That's Raleigh right now. Like, you ever play video games, you pick the easy mode? That's Raleigh, right? Go to chess.com, you play the lowest level computer, that's Rolly Romero, right? You could give him your queen, it won't take it. Like, you know, Rolly Romero's so bad. I just tweeted out, he's like the worst world boxing champion in the men's anyway. Women have had some bad ones, but in the men's, ever. Like ever.
He's up there, yeah.
I cannot think of anybody worse than Raleigh. And then the way it was given to him, too. At 20 weeks, old dad's like, well, because the guy he wasn't hitting was old. So that's why I stopped. Okay, we're very nice. Okay. Like, here's the thing. Rolly Romero is the worst boxing world champion, but he's not like the worst world champion in anything. He's worse than the chess world champion, kickboxing world champion, MMA world champion, slap league champion.
That's how you really feel, man.
Like you know, little league champions, you know, like hot dog eating champion. Oh, he's worse than all of these champions. All right. Now, with that said, at least in hot dog eating, they can't fake it, right? You have to actually eat the hot dogs, right?
Yeah.
Like a 20 weeks can't step in and just give it to you. Oh, you win. Like, you know what I mean? So I don't know. But anyway, with that said, Adrien Broner, I'll say this: his nickname fits now because he's a problem. You know, he is, but it's his own problem, right? I remember in the last show we did, Callie, somebody put in the chat. He went from about billions to about burgers, right? and I don't know who said that, but it was funny. For me, I don't want Ryan to waste his time with Broner right now. It's got to be honest. I want to see Broner against Blair Cobbs. I want to see that promotion. I want to see that press conference, and it's good. It's not for a world title. It's a perfect fight for Golden Boy and Don King's corpse to work together and make a fight up.
Yeah. By the way, one more fight.
Don King is still doing a better job than De La Hoya, by the way. Right? Because when Broner said, I want this, Don King said, as a promoter, you hurt the man. You hurt him. Right? Like, De La Hoya is like, he's saying the opposite of what Ryan's saying on social media. He can't even get his own shit in order. So I don't know.
I know everybody wants to get to the two big fights, and we'll get to that in a minute. One more topic before then. And by the way, we're not going to talk about the Mayweather Circus Act because that guy is just desperate for attention to where he's completely reaching at this point. Because, by the way, fellas, like he fought John Gotti III. And I want people to know something. You're not going to brawl, even with the washed up mafia family. You're not going to, it's planned. This was WWE because they're brawling in the street with some of the Gotti family. And dude, even a washed up mafia family, unless it was planned, you're not going to be doing that stuff. So just know that this was all WWE Circus Act. Floyd is really, really grasping at this point for whatever is left of his attention. And people just need to know that. Sonny Edwards versus Andres Campos. I don't want to talk about the fight too much because the fight was the fight. He's a 20-1 favorite. But do you think we'll see Bam Rodriguez versus Sonny Edwards next? I think we'll see it. And here's my reservations before I would pick a Sonny Edwards to beat Bam Rodriguez. The elephant in the room is he's a talented fighter, athletic, great lateral movement. He's one of the fighters who can switch orthodox to southpaw seamlessly, can throw the jab off of both, much like Bud Crawford, can set up different things, can set up combinations. But the elephant in the room is 20% KO percentage. 4 knockouts, 20 fights. It's just, I don't see him beating a guy at Bam's level with a 20% KO percentage. Am I wrong?
No, I think you're totally right. I think Sonny might give him his toughest fight just because of his skills, his athleticism, that movement you talked about, because Bam's going to have to reset constantly to get his punches off. But Bam has power in both hands, and he can do it upstairs, downstairs. He has great angles, shoots a beautiful uppercut, pivots well. So I think he does everything Sonny does, but just a little bit better. Bam is special. I really feel that way. So I think that's a great fight. It's a fantastic matchup of styles. And I do think Sonny will give him some issues, some things to think about. But it will, in the end, I think Bam controls that fight and wins it. I think he's the best fighter in that division by far.
The last two Bam fights, have you taken a step back at all? Or are you still there? Because when I saw him knock out Carlos Cuadras and Soren Vise the way he did, I'm like, oh, this guy's already top 10 pound for pound. Then the last two fights, he met some resistance against good opposition. You know, are we moving too fast and saying he's a top 10 pound for pound guy already?
Too fast for that.
Too fast?
Yeah, he's still developing. He's still young. And people always jump the gun. You know, look, you mentioned Cuadras, Rungvisai. Those are older guys past their best. They're faded. And there was a styles thing. So he didn't look as good in his last couple of fights, but those were developmental fights is the way I look at it. He's learned, you know, and he's going to be better. He knows with Sonny Edwards, he's got to fight the way he fought against Cuadras, Rungvisai. It's that level of opposition. I think he's going to look good. I really do.
Go ahead, D-Style. Bam versus Sonny next.
There was a line. I don't know if you guys, I know Calix doesn't, but if you guys ever watch professional wrestling, right? So Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart, they had like backstage beef, right? And there was this valet, her name was Sunny, right? And she was known to sleep around with the wrestlers, and a lot of the wrestlers' wives knew about this, right? So Shawn Michaels decided to go on the mic, and while he's cutting a promo on Bret, he said the line, "I know you had some sunny days, my friend, or lately you've had some sunny days, my friend, but you still can't get the job done." He made it sound like he was talking like about wrestling, and then Bret Hart's wife called him, was mad, yada, yada. But with that said, that line sticks with me. You've had some sunny days, my friend, but you still can't get the job done. All right. Bam is just another level to Edwards. Like, here's the thing. Edwards, look, that guy he fought, You can't go up to a dude, knock his hat off, and be like, I'm going to beat you up, mate. I'm going to destroy you. And then you're fancying it for half the fight. All right? You're playing tag with a dude, and you are we're going to get on like another fighters that don't get knockouts. How about Sonny Edwards?
Yeah.
You are a 20-1 favorite, bro. You're supposed to watch this dude. You're not supposed to resort to fighting, ringing out type fight. I'm just gonna,
he just can't do it. D-style. He doesn't have even against that level of.
I'm on the fence right now. After I knocked your hat off and said I'm gonna rip your face off, and you just can't do it, bro. It's like Benavidez said this about plan. He's like the guy talks like he's gonna do all this, but that's not how. You're not a killer, bro. It's not how you fight, right? Bam is gonna punish him, in my opinion, because I think Bam has better angles than Edwards. Edwards is a really good outboxer, and he's resorted to working the ropes, and it works against certain level. It worked against Alvarado to a certain degree, by the way, and it worked on Saturday to a certain degree. But here's my issue. And this is not Sonny Edwards' fault, by the way. Sonny did his thing. Sonny won. I mean, I scored 8-4, so I'm not arguing that he didn't win. Right. And I do think I don't think he could beat Bam. And I do think, to answer your question, I do think it's going to happen.
He's talented.
But he's a good fighter, though. I'm not saying Bam's not, that Edwards isn't good. But I want to say this. And I'm seeing this across the board with commentators calling fights. Don't tell me what you feel the fighter should be doing because they would be winning more easily, or if they're only doing this because they're making it harder on themselves. This fight shouldn't be this close, but it is this close because he's choosing to make it close. And stop telling us this horseshit. A fight is what it is. If Bam's against the ropes and is getting hit, here's what you do. Bam's getting hit against the ropes. He needs to get out of there. Like, say that, right? In my opinion, the fighter landing the punches should be given the benefit of the doubt. And what I mean by that is this. As a commentator, you should be talking about how he has Edwards against the ropes and he's landing punches while Edwards is against the ropes. Whether Edwards should be there or not, whether he has the ability to not be there, whether you think it's the right choice, wrong choice, he could easily not be there if he didn't want to. All that dumb shit, all it does, okay, it tricks the viewer to think that what's happening isn't really happening. But it is happening. It's not a mirage, right? And how do you know that he just wants to do that and just get hit? Maybe his opponent was doing things to get him against the ropes. Maybe Edwards doesn't want to be moving around the ring for 12 rounds. That gets exhausting, right? Maybe that was his game plan. We don't know. And it's not just the zone. I see this. Thank God Bradley was not on the commentary team because he does it all the time. He's cheerleading, he's oohing and eyeing. Yeah. Look at that hook. And I'm like, why are you oohing, bro? Like, what's going on right now? You know what I mean? Oh! And then there was in the middle of the Lomachenko fight, he literally said, guys, I'm telling you, man, I think he's about to take over this fight. I don't think Loma, and then Loma smacks him with a straight left. Oh, and then Ward had to tell him, like, well, I don't know, he just landed on a straight left, Tim. Like, I mean, stop trying to be the fortune teller just so you could pat yourself in the back after and be like, well, you remember round 4, I called it. I told you that this was going to happen. It happened, right? Because half of the time it doesn't even happen. Just call the fucking action. That's all I want from you guys. Just tell us what's happening in the fight. After the fight, then you can analyze it. Say, oh, you know what? I thought this was the wrong game plan. Don't do it in the middle of the fight. Don't make
it about you. Don't make it about you.
Don't make it about you and about how you know he's doing it wrong. And if Edwards just bucks from the outside, this will be a very, very easy fight. Him against the ropes, it's going to make people believe that it's close. Nah, I don't know. So some of those rounds are close, actually. I think he was getting hit, like somewhat. And I think we should be giving the fighter landing the punches credit, not discrediting him indirectly by suggesting that Edwards could easily not be in his position if he didn't want to. That's my rant.
Shout out to Chauncey Pearls. Here's a dime to put towards the shipping cost of that $65 Spence shirt you have to wear on HCP Aftermath, YouTube's premier boxing podcast when Spence beats Bud. Sign the contract. I'm taking the bet. Chauncey, I texted you that. I'm taking the bet. Bud is going to stop Spence, in my opinion. I'll wear that ugly shirt, that hideous shirt on here if Spence happens to knock him out. And you can send me money via Venmo when that doesn't happen. One last on that is when Sonny knocked the hat off and you say 20% KO percentage when guys are doing that. It's believable when people do it at a high rate when they knock guys out that they do those annex at weigh-ins. It's like when Haney did it to Lomachenko. And I said his first reaction after he pushed Lomachenko was to hug him. Yeah, that's his first reaction after that, because certain guys, it's believable when they do it. I love Paulie as a fighter because he talked trash and all this stuff. But when he did this stuff at weigh-ins, it wasn't believable. When Clarissa Shield does it at weigh-ins and says she's going to kill people, it's not believable. She doesn't knock anybody out. When Jamal shows up at fights drunk and calls people out, it's not believable. When Jermell does it, it's more believable. Certain people, you believe it. Certain people, you don't. When Sonny Edwards does it, you just kind of laugh because you're like, what's he going to do? Jab the guy to death? It's just not going to happen. The two big fights, I put the poll up, who won between Munguia, Derevyanchenko. Full transparency, I had Munguia winning 114-113, edging it out. I had him down 6 rounds to 5 going into that 12th. The knockdown and winning the round won it on my scorecard. And I thought the cards were mostly good. 115, 112 from Munguia might be pushing it. I don't know. Some people are pretty strong feelings about Derevyanchenko not winning it. D-Style, you and I thought that this was going to be a tougher fight for Munguia than people expected. Derevyanchenko is game. And ironically, I think the Munguia team wanted a 10-round fight coming in. And if they would have got that, Derevyanchenko would have won the fight in a 10-round fight.
Maybe. Here's the maybe. The reason I say maybe is because you're going to fight a little different if you know it's only 10 versus 12, right? So Derevyanchenko would have maybe been able to unload even more in some of those rounds, right? Here's the thing. I did think Derevyanchenko was going to give him fits. I didn't think he was going to have him hurt multiple times. Right. But you know what? I'm not. There's a lot of people criticizing Munguia, like, he's a hype job. That's why they're protecting him, which I agree. I do believe they've been protecting him too long, probably because they know he's beatable. But I don't know. I have no. I love the fight. Like, I have literally no complaints. Like, what is it to complain about? I loved watching that fight.
We need action stars. We need action stars.
Yeah, like that fight was a beautiful fight to watch. You know what I mean? Those guys are throwing chingazo. Like, they were going back and forth. Okay, and like it was it was just fun to watch. Like, it's funny how like when Munguia had the most success is when he got in trouble, right? Because he tried going for the finish, and it's like, yo, you're not gonna. Derevyanchenko's like, remember when Drago goes back to his corner, and he's like a piece of steel, like, or some shit like that, like
a piece of iron.
Like, that's Derevyanchenko, bro. You're not gonna knock that dude out, bro. Like, if it comes, it comes, but that shouldn't be your game plan. Go out there and knock him out in the first 4 rounds. Like, that ain't gonna happen. Like, he's gonna weather that storm. And he could box enough, by the way, to where he's not even taking all those shots and then punish you. And that's what he was doing. I love the fight. I wouldn't mind. I would love to see a rematch, to be honest with you. Moving forward, just put Munguia in the fights. So what if he loses? Like, he's getting hit anyway. What are you preserving?
Yeah.
He's taking all this punishment anyway against Derevyanchenko, right?
Tell me you wouldn't want to see Golovkin versus Munguia right now.
I would love to see Golovkin wins, by the way. But hey,
I don't care if this guy loses 10 times. You keep delivering what you delivered me Saturday. Action. This sport doesn't have action stars anymore. I talked about it 15 years since Gotti retired, right? Give or take a year. And how many Arturo Gottis are we producing in boxing? None. None. Just give me an action star who shows up quarterly every once in a while. This is the specific thing that people are missing about Gotti is He could have fought the Thomas Dom guards for $2 million per fight and just kept doing that, selling out Atlantic City Boardwalk. But occasionally he stepped up and fought fights we all knew he was going to lose. We all knew he was going to lose to Mayweather, De La Hoya, but he fought him. And that's what we're missing with Munguia so far is just continue to fight this guy every 3-4 months.
And here's the thing, Alex.
Obviously can sell. And once a year, step him up. That's all we're asking.
And here's the thing. It's not like there isn't a De La Hoya and Mayweather anyway. Like these are winnable fights for him, believe it or not. So like I don't get it.
Stay away from Charlo just because of styles, I think. Although I don't know what to think about Charlo anymore because he's still inactive. And Maul is the weaker one. But you guys brought up a great point I didn't even consider, man. So full disclosure, I know people in Munguia's camp. Okay, they're really, really close to the camp. There's a lot of things I know that I cannot put on the record, but I will just tell you that his team has really fucked him over for the last 4 or 5 years. They are not doing him any favors. And if I were Munguia, I would leave that entire camp and jump ship and go somewhere else, but he won't because he's very loyal. The people around him, again, I can't give details, online. I just can't, but they're not doing him any favors.
Is this a golden boy thing? Because
no, it's
not a golden boy thing.
It's not even that high up. It's directly people in Munguia's camp have really, really fucked this kid up. And I wish I could give you guys details, but I just can't, because I don't want to mess with those sources. But he's not being taken care of. So I feel for the kid. I feel for the kid a lot. And his loyalty is what's fucking his career up, honestly. But all that being said, at some point you got to be a man and walk away and tell people, I'm going to go over here, I'm going to go over there because you're not taking care of me. I'll say the one thing about Eric Morales. He's pretty much just a name that's there. He's not doing anything for Jaime. And I'll leave that right there. But anyway, you talk about the action part. That's a great point. Mexican fans in particular don't give a shit if somebody loses, as long as they're fighting the best. Yep. They're the most forgivable fans in the sport right now. Them and the UK fans, I should say. So if Munguia steps up and loses a couple of fights, no one gives a shit as long as he gets in the ring and he fights consistently and he fights hard. I didn't even think about that because I was getting ready to criticize him and say all this shit, but you guys brought up that point, and it was a really, really good point. I can't think of many bad Jaime Munguia fights. They're usually pretty entertaining. They're pretty fun.
Even the Jimmy Kelly fight, we were like, Jimmy Kelly, and then he comes in, Jimmy Kelly outboxes him for a couple rounds, and Munguia just knocks him out.
Right. And there's that part of your brain that says, man, you should be dominating this dude. What's up? But then there's the other part of your brain that's like, man, this shit was fun. Mm-hmm. I'd watch that again. So you guys make a great point. And if I was Golden Boy, if I was the people at that level of his team promoting him, it's like, okay, this is what we have here. Let's get him matched up with the right guys and make for entertaining fights. There's plenty of interim belts and gold and silver diamond belts all over the fucking place that he can fight for. And, there's names that he could fight where I do think him and Golovkin will happen at some point. I know they've wanted that for several years. Both sides have wanted it. So that in Los Angeles, that's going to do numbers.
Yeah. And that's a fight of your candidate.
But you talked about deficiencies and speaking on deficiencies, and I want to hear more about that. I do want to hear that. But one thing I was kind of impressed with is he did make some adjustments. He did jab a little more 7th or 8th round and try to give him, because Munguia, you see Munguia and you're like, that guy just wants to fight. But I did see him pull himself back a little bit in the middle rounds and try to regain some control over the fight, because ironically, when the fight was chaotic early on, it favored Derevyanchenko in the trades. And I think Munguia tried to gain a little bit of that back in the middle rounds until now we're going to go back blood and guts later when I try to wear the older fighter down a little more. But what are the clear deficiencies that you're seeing with Munguia stylistically? Like what's he doing wrong that can be taken advantage of by other fighters?
He just seems to have lapses. There's just gaps. I don't know how else to put it, but he has gaps that other fighters can fill, smart fighters can fill. And he has these mental lapses where he just kind of loses focus. I mean, we could talk about technical stuff, the way he jumps in, dives in, and things like that. But I just see these momentum shifts when he fights because he has these lapses. And for Derevyanchenko, that's exactly what he wants. And by the way, I scored it just like you. I thought the knockdown was the difference, like six rounds apiece, and the knockdown was the difference. So I didn't see it at all being controversial that Munguia won. Now, maybe the scorecards were too wide, but I thought he nicked it with the knockdown. And that's always been Derevyanchenko's thing. He gets dropped in every fight. He gets dropped once, and he loses his close fights because he gets dropped. Anyway, yeah, I just see lapses in him. You got to be razor focused, man. Like for 3 whole minutes, you could not let up. And he gets a little lazy and just gets caught that way. And so far, he hasn't paid the price for that, but at some point he will.
Yeah. Yeah. And he will. And guess what? We'll still be here because he's entertaining. And that's the lesson here is fight the fights.
Yeah. The thing is that he's getting hit on his fight. He was getting hit against Derevyanchenko, right? No matter who he was getting hit by Dennis Hogan. Like, no matter who you put him in there, he's going to get hit. So there's nothing to preserve here. Like the longer you wait, you're eroding what you have, pretty much, right?
That's a good point.
So all you got to do is put him in there, and you know what you do? You promote it as this Saturday, the most exciting fighter in the sport, Jaime Munguia. But that's all you do, and people will tune in. People don't care if he's a world champion.
Him, William Zepeda. Promote him as action stars.
People don't care. William Zepeda, like, they just don't care. They're action fighters now. Like I said earlier, there is no Mayweather level caliber fighter or De La Hoya caliber fighter, right? Golovkin's kind of old now, so these fights are winnable for him. You know what I mean? Yeah. Even Charlo, like if he catches Charlo on a bad night, like if that was Munguia instead of Montiel, like I don't know, like we probably have a fight of the year, like candidate fight, right? Like that's all I'm saying. Like, just put him in there in good caliber fights. And this is why I miss the Boxing After Darks. Yep. Okay. I miss HBO for that reason. And I miss the ESPN Friday Night Fights. Because there used to be tiers in boxing that we could follow, and we knew what type of boxing we were going to watch and catch on that night. Right? We knew, okay, this is where the prospect fights. Okay, this is where the kind of older fighters are fighting prospects. This is where they do step-up fights. This is where we're going to see if there's a real deal or not, or whatever it is. They used to have that. We don't have that anymore. Now we have a crapshoot now. Like, they throw us a main event, and it's the most random undercards ever, right? And he just throws like women fights, like he just sprinkles them on, like, okay. You know what I mean? Like, nobody's there in the arena, Eddie. Like, it is what it is, right? But I'm going on a tangent here. But my point is, when it comes to Jaime Munguia, he's kind of and of course I'm hearing what Montero was saying about he has issues with his team personally, but at a macro level, he's kind of like a victim of the new system we have in boxing. Like, he suffered from this protecting of the old thing, right? Just even like De La Hoya is like very protective of his fighter. Even when like De La Hoya talks about Eddie Hearn and how he made a mistake putting Canelo in there against Bivol because that was a tough fight, and why would he do that? And it's like, Oscar, you're literally revealing to everybody that you will not put your fighters in fights if you feel they can't win. Like, you're making it obvious, bro. Like, if it's a tough fight, you won't do it. And I see it with Munguia. I see it with some of your other fighters, you know, when you don't have to. In any other era, Munguia would be on Boxing After Dark, right? In fight of your candidates, and that's it.
Yeah. The big one, Teofimo, Josh Taylor. Full transparency, D-Style and all. I think 9 out of 10 pundits out there picked Josh Taylor to win the fight. Ironically, in this fight, many people thought Josh Taylor would gain traction in the fight the further it goes on, right? Yeah. Like, Teofimo would start to wither, not be able to make adjustments. It was Josh Taylor who couldn't make a single adjustment in this fight. Josh Taylor could not make an adjustment in this fight. He did not adjust in this fight at all. Teofimo, the guy, we said it coming in, the mental stuff is, and it was there. It was there in the last 2 fights. It was there, the Kambosos fight. It was overshadowing the guy we saw fight Lomachenko. This guy he's now lineal at 135, was lineal at 140. No matter what people say about Teofimo, what's going on outside the ring, what do we have now? The first guy to beat Nakatani, the guy who completely destroyed Comey in that second round, the first guy to knock him out, beats Lomachenko in an empty ballroom when they could have marinated the fight. And now 3 years later, he beats the lineal champion at 140. This is a great fighter at this point. He's like, I'm there. I'm there now. He's a great fighter. He's a guy now where you would say he's going to have lapses. Right now he's saying he needs 100 million to fight, and that's cap. That he's going to come back. And what I would tell people is focus less on what's going on outside the ring, because what he's proven now is in the big fights, he's going to compartmentalize that. In this clickbait media, boxing media we have now, they want you to focus so much on what these guys are saying outside the ring for the clickbait. Focus on what's going on inside the ring. What we clearly have now with Teofimo is a guy who's going to give us the fights. And on top of that, in the big fights, he shows up. He's one of those guys, when the lights are the brightest, he's going to show up. I love, once again, he's great at cutting off angles. He did it with Josh Taylor in this fight. He did it against Lomachenko 3 years ago. I'm there, fellas. There's not a guy out there at 140 that I would count Teofimo out against. I'm done with that. I got burnt twice. I picked Lomachenko to beat him, as most people did. I picked Josh Taylor to beat him. I thought both of those guys were clearly going to beat him. Didn't happen. Didn't happen. This guy is legit. He can beat anybody out there. He could also lose against the Sandor Martin. It's just one of those things. But in the big fights, he's going to show up.
Styles big fights.
What'd you think, Mike?
Yeah, so when you look at the Fab Five, right? It's Teofimo, it's Tank, it's Ryan Garcia, Devin Haney, Shakur Stevenson. Teo's got the best resume. I don't know how anybody could deny that right now. I know Tank's the biggest commercial star or whatever, but Teo has the resume. He was the legitimate champion at 135 because I think the WBC was out at that point, but who gives a shit? That was when he beat Lomachenko, he was the champion. Mm-hmm. And now beating Josh Taylor, he was the guy. So he is the champion at 140. So two-time champion. How many fights does Teo have? 20? 20, right? Yeah, 20. So he's done that in 20 fights. That's like Alexander Usyk-ish, right? Yeah. I'm trying to think over the past few years who has a resume like Usyk. The only guy that's around that is Teofimo. He deserves tremendous credit, man. And the one thing he has shown is he is hot and cold. You know, there on any given night he could lose, and he's almost like a Vladimir Klitschko in the sense that he could lose to a guy that on paper he should smoke. Right? He's kind of got that aura about him where he just might not show up 100%. And yeah, there's all the crazy antics outside the ring and everything. But like you said, man, when the lights are on, it's the biggest fights. It's if you do it once, it's a fluke, but he's done it twice now. It's not a fluke. This guy is really good. I do have to add this though. For Josh Taylor, inactivity killed that dude. He has fought once a year since 2019. In 2020, 2021, 2022, fought once a year. Hadn't fought in over a year when he fought this fight. And he looks sluggish. He looks slow. And you brought up the fact that he started fast and faded down the stretch. That is the hallmark sign of a fighter who's not 100%. So old fighters start slow and finish strong, like Lomachenko's been doing in his recent fights, Golovkin in some of his recent fights. That's the mark of an old fighter. But a young fighter who is not in their best shape, they start fast and fade. And that's what we saw with Taylor here. So he just, as I mentioned before, at the elite level, man, it's fractions of a percent that separate these dudes. So if you got one guy that's at 99% and the other guy's at 90%, that's the difference. And to me, Teo just looks sharper. He was just more dynamic, more explosive throughout. And I'm with you. He's the number one guy at 140 right now. Mm-hmm. He really, truly is.
He is. He beat the guy. And I had people telling me, and I believed them, he's not going to fight Josh Taylor when he moves to 140. He's not going to fight Regis Prograis. And when the news broke that he wasn't going to fight Regis Prograis, I was like, here it goes. Then a couple of days later, he signs to fight Josh Taylor. And that's the thing I'll always respect about him, Josh Taylor. These guys who fight the fights. And we don't on our channels hand out mythical victories. I don't want to hear this bullshit anymore that Tank beats this guy.
Right.
Haney, Lomachenko, Teofimo, they're delivering the fights. They're fighting the tough fights against each other. Tank is over here on the minor league circuit. We're not going to hand him any mythical victories against any of these guys, even if the eye test is flying off the charts, because I have to assume he's not in the fights for a reason. And I'm just going to assume until he does it, that he loses those fights. That's going to be my assumption until he steps up and fights the fights. I appreciate these guys for giving us the fights. And here's another thing that impresses me about Teofimo is Berlanga's a guy. As he comes up, he's knocking guys out. But once he gets into the 10, 12 rounders and can't knock guys out, he's not able to win 7 rounds and beat bigger name fighters. Teofimo twice now, he's won decisions against elite fighters. So he's proven that he's not only a knockout artist, this is a guy who closes the show. 2 big fights, Mike. He's decisively won the 12th round. Decisively. Look, I love Lomachenko. I think he's a special fighter. One of the knocks on him, I think, is his arrogance allows him to concede certain things. He'll concede Devin Haney's body punching so he can land a straight left. Bud Crawford does the same thing, but Bud Crawford's 100% KO percentage at 147, so it shades that stuff. They'll concede certain things. Lomachenko, twice now, it got the best of him against Teofimo, no matter what we thought the scorecards were. The thing about Teofimo is when the fight's on the table, even if looks like he's winning, he goes for it. 2 of the scorecards, he needed the 11th and 12th, even though that shouldn't have been the case.
He went against Kambosos when he had that horrible start. He finished really, really strong down the stretch and made it close. You know, so he's game, man. He's definitely game.
Look,
he's game. He tries to close the show. He understands entertainment. When he gets with his nunchucks, when he starts nunchucking and doing all that stuff and then throwing, it's a beautiful sight. That guy, when he gets in his zone, he can beat anybody.
Look, check it out. A couple of things about this fight. Now, ironically, about last year, I did a roundtable. And one of the topic was on the roundtable show, will Teofimo Lopez ever be a champion again? I was one of the few that said yes. A lot of people didn't feel he was ever going to be champion ever again. I personally, this is me, I never understood the concept of, Teo's not going to take those fights. He's not going to fight those guys because Teo never moved that way. I mean, Teo is a guy that always made the fights happen, and he did it without having to really be. I mean, look, he fought him and Lomachenko don't get enough credit for basically taking a big pay cut to fight in front of no crowd, right, on ESPN.
No live gate.
No live gate, nothing. And instead of the fans celebrating that and rewarding them by watching them or whatever, like they don't, like, it doesn't. I don't know. Fans are weird nowadays, but I never questioned Teofimo's abilities in the ring, like his physical attributes, and look, I picked him to beat Lomachenko. Like, I have a lot of confidence in him, but I understand that he won the fight, and I understand that he looked great in the fight. But what I will say is that it was fair to question his mental state, because he himself has said that his mental state affected his performance against Nakatani, against they even said it affected his performance against Cambozas, right? Also, and Xander. So don't be a Monday morning quarterback and be like, oh, well, why were people questioning his mental state? The only reason we know about the mental state because they bring it up, right? Now, granted, maybe they did some like art of war type shit, right? Like where you, like, when you aren't in danger, you act like you're in big danger, and it confuses the enemy. Who knows? Maybe he did do it. I don't know. But at the end of the day, I just think he figured it out on the night, and I think Tater couldn't. Tater couldn't get off. He looked flat. Mm-hmm. And Teofimo Lopez did what he's supposed to do. He took advantage of it, and he won in a fashion that you're supposed to win, right? in that circumstance. It wasn't close. It wasn't debatable, despite what the judges say. And he won in very convincing fashion. I don't want to hear why you guys criticize him for what he said when he himself apologized to Taylor for what he said. Okay, the talent of fighter, I'm going to kill you, and we don't have room for that in boxing, in my opinion, right? But he apologized for it, and also, I'm still not going to let go. Look, it's cool. Look, it's easy to be humble and to win, right? Because you won. But I haven't forgotten how he was such a sore loser after the Kambosos fight. I haven't forgotten that. You never owned up to that. So I'm not saying he needs to make up for it for me, or all I'm saying is I'm just reminding people that a lot of the criticisms he received were valid. Mm-hmm. Okay? The criticisms he received for a lot of the things he said were valid criticisms. You don't just erase the things you said and did before because you want a boxing fight, right? What happens when you win the boxing fight, you get credit for your victory, right? Now, with all that said, I do think many may not agree with me right now, but I'm just going to have to say this. As long as Teofimo Lopez could stay on the zone, and he has not yet shown that he could be consistent. He didn't look that great against Nakatani. Then he knocks Comey out like early, right? And then he beats Roman. Then he loses to Kambosos, and then so he's up and down, guys. He hasn't proven he could stay on. Reaching the top, mountaintop is one thing, right? Staying there's another. That's what great fighters have done in the past. Right? So that's what I want to see. He has the ability to do it, but is he going to do it? Is what I want to know. And I will say this. So as long as he stays in the zone and focused, I'm sorry, Calix. I think he beats Regis Prograis. I know he's your dude. I think he beats Haney if Haney moves up. I don't think Haney could take that power. I just don't. Right? I think he beats anybody at 140 pounds right now. 1 year ago, before the Kambosos fight, when he was talking about moving up and fighting Taylor, I openly said I think he could beat Taylor, right? I just didn't think his mental state was there. It is what it is, right? But this is a fighter that I think he's a special fighter, talent-wise. But and it's an interesting story, and I personally like tragic stories. I like, or not tragic, but I like, erase that. I like tortured souls. It's like a Shakespearean story. Like, you know what I mean? It's like, you don't know what's going to happen next with this guy. Like, we're like flipping the book right now, and we don't know if the next chapter is going to be a red wedding or if Joffrey's going to finally get killed. Like, we just don't know. You know what I mean? And I just, he's an interesting dude to watch. Lastly, look, I agree with him when it comes to something, but with some caveats. I understand the frustration he has. Like, I had to fight Lomachenko and I had to fight Josh Taylor, and I got paid $1 million. Now, $1 million's a lot for me. Like, I'd be happy with $1 million. But context. Haney got paid more to fight dudes on the zone. Like, he got paid more. Like, he got what Linares got to fight Haney. That's what he got. Like, that's crazy to me. Now, granted, I do believe the zone was overpaying some dudes. Well, it is what it is, right? But this is what happens when you inflate the market. And when we had Roberto Diaz, if you remember, Calix, what would he tell us? I would try to make a fight. It's a great fight. And then one of the fighters would be like, hey, why am I not getting paid like the way you're paying this dude to fight bums? Right? So it becomes, it's a problem, right? But in Teofimo's case, I think he should get paid. Like, whether you like him, don't like him. Now, it's not $100 million. I don't know where he got. I made $100 million for ESPN. I don't know where he got that from. Maybe math wasn't like his strength in school. I don't know.
He made it up.
Like, you know what I mean? But maybe 100. Like, it's. I don't know how he came up with that. But pay the man. Like if you're gonna pay Haney a certain amount of money, Teofimo should definitely, because like Montero said, he's got the best resume. He's taking the most risk, and I want a sport where the risk takers get rewarded.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I want. If you reward risk taking by paying those fighters more, guess what fighters are going to start doing? If you reward protecting the O and fighting B-level fighters, guess what fighters are going to do? Right?
Yep.
And you as a boxing fan watching out there, right? If you want to argue with me and say things that you're saying on Twitter, like that aren't true, like things like, oh, because I tweeted out to Leonard Allerby, by the way. Hi, Leonard. I know you're watching. Mr. Noseman, he
loves us over here.
Loves us, you know what I mean? But if you don't care what these guys are accomplishing and you guys are content with the money that Tank is making, why are you responding to people?
Exactly.
Why are you going back and forth?
I'm being so insecure.
Yeah, like he's responding to a dude with 50 followers on Twitter, bro.
Yes.
Like, I mean, like, this dude really, his opinion is really bothering you that just because he told you he's more accomplished. And then you have other dudes on Twitter saying dumb shit like, oh, they just want fighters to be broke. Who the fuck said that? No, nobody said that. Nobody wants fighters broke, and nobody said that. You guys, like, your comeback to these guys, a lot of these dudes are getting overpaid, is you want them broke. No. I want as many fighters as possible to get paid. But if you overpay one fighter, that's taking from the pot from everybody else. That doesn't really make you pro fighter. Okay, that's number one. All right. Second, I want a sport, and I believe every boxing fan should agree with this, where risk taking gets rewarded by upping your pay scale. Right. You beat a guy like Josh Taylor, yeah, that's okay. Now the $3-4 million makes sense for your next fight because you took that risk. You know what I mean? Not because we're investing in you and you might sell somewhere down the line or all this dumb shit that they're doing nowadays in boxing. All right, Teofimo Lopez has taken the risk. Teofimo Lopez is a two-time lineal champion. All right, and lineal, I'll put lineal above the 4 trinkets any day, right? Because trinkets, Raleigh, we just saw Raleigh could get a fucking trinket, right?
Even
so
real
trinkets are just fucking trinkets, bro. And all this dumb technicality shit, boxing fans turn into nerds and well, he wasn't really undisputed because he didn't really have that one belt over there. The sanctioning bodies, all 3 need to recognize the one belt he had, and the 3 did not recognize the franchise belt. So even though he beat Lomachenko, who never lost to WBC, they upgraded Haney to WBC champion. So therefore, he was never undisputed champion. Well, you know what? You got to take the term undisputed and shove it up your ass. How about this? He's a lineal champion, 2 weight classes, okay? So when Max Kellerman is saying, in my opinion, he is the undisputed champion, he's not talking about who the sanctioning bodies recognize and when they're pulling each other's dicks and all that. That's not what they're talking about. What he's talking about is who's the fucking man of the division. Okay? Go back to the annals of the time of boxing. When Jack Johnson beat Burns for the heavyweight championship of the world, and I believe it was in Sydney, Australia. Okay, when that happened, he was the man that beat the man. All right? Well, when Ali beat Sonny Liston, he was the man that beat the man. There was no such thing as, well hold on, this one guy, they upgraded him to champion, so you got to go fight him now. So you're not really the guy until you fight those 2 other dudes that never beat anybody. Like, no, they didn't have that dumb shit back then, right? The man that beat the man will always trump undisputed. The only time undisputed matters to me really is when the man moves up, okay, from division, and the belts scatter, and then all you can fight for all the belts, and then the undisputed champion becomes the man. Well, that man was Josh Taylor, all right? So he beat that dude. Yep. That's all that matters to me. And anyone with common sense will understand that. No offense to Regis Progress or the Puerto Rican cat or what's his name, Raleigh. You guys are title holders. You're holding trinkets. You're not the man of the division. That's the way I feel about it.
Mike, I want to give you the floor before we let you go. Any thoughts on just all your thoughts on the past weekend? Any final thoughts to close it up?
You know, man, 2023 so far, we've had some nice fights come together, man.
Yeah.
It's good to see. And I'm wondering, are these fights coming together because the business of boxing understands that they have to, or is it a financial thing? Like, this is the only way these guys can get paid. I don't know, but Top Rank, man, Lomachenko Haney, that was pay-per-view. But this one here with Teo and Taylor was not pay-per-view.
Yep.
You talk about the pay scale and Teo not getting much money, and that's like that's the dichotomy for fans, because it's like, well, do you want the fight not on pay-per-view like this was, or do you want the fight to be on pay-per-view where you have to pay that extra premium but the fighter gets paid more? And that's the thing, man. Because I just think all these pay-per-views are killing the sport. They milk the fans to make that extra money. You know, boxing in America is not viewed by more fans these days than it was 30, 40 years ago. Globally, it is. Globally, the numbers are off the charts. But here in America, it's seen by a lot less people, but the revenue is up because those people are being gouged.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? They're paying more for just to be a fight fan than they ever have. So I don't know how much longer that's sustainable, man. But I'm still trying to figure out what's going on right now in the business, and how it's definitely changing. I feel like, you know, obviously things are evolving. I don't know if it's for the best or not, but
I don't think it is here. And I think it's a country
sustainable.
I think it's a country club sport here now. I think they're pricing us too much. They're making it too exclusive.
I was a big DAZN fan when they launched, man. I was a subscriber from day one, and now they've lost me, bro. I did not renew my subscription. I'm out. They have become straight up trash, and everything that they marketed themselves on, they've gone back, and just they've become complete hypocrites. And like, their biggest events are these YouTubers and shit like that. And then when they get a high level fight with Canelo or something that's a pay-per-view, PBC does a pay-per-view pretty much every month. Mm-hmm. So like, I don't want to be that negative dude that complains. I like that we're getting some good matchups. I just wonder how long can we sustain this? And you know, where are we going? That's just what I don't know right now. Where are we going? Anyway, guys, thank you for having me on. I hate to leave on a negative note like that, but that's just where I'm at as a fan, you know? So
yeah, appreciate you coming through, man. Like I said, anytime.
Thanks a lot, fellas.
Appreciate it. That is Michael Montero, MonteroUnboxing.com. And he's got his channel right here on YouTube as well, Montero Unboxing. I want to say this about Teofimo. He has shown multiple times now. And look, the out of the ring stuff is going to be there. Like I said, and I want to focus less on that, because what I think he's proven multiple times now is he can compartmentalize that in big fights. Josh Taylor, Lomachenko, even in the Nakatani fight, he wins that fight, call me. We got a guy on our hands now who is special. I think he belongs on the pound-for-pound list. And look, I'm a Regis homer, but guess what? I got him ranked above Regis. And also, guess what? I just said, big fights going forward, I'm not going to pick against Teofimo anymore. I'm just going to assume he's going to show up. He's going to look better than he looked in previous fights when he's
that's the roller coaster he takes us through, right? Like when we all like favored him heavy, he lost, right? Like when we were all convinced he was going to destroy Cambosos. Like, bro, out of all his fights, honest to God, besides maybe that first fight he had at 140, I mean, look, if you remember, I predicted him to knock out Martin like early. Like, I thought he was going to overwhelm him, just knock him out. Mm-hmm. And then when that didn't happen, I was like, okay, something's wrong. And maybe I overthought it. Like maybe I shouldn't have overthought it. Maybe I should have just kind of picked him anyway, whatever, right? But my issue is this. I just want a guy, whether you like a guy or not, if he said things you don't like, people need to learn to separate that from what they do in the ring. Like, they need to learn to do that. And you cannot deny what he's done in the ring. Like, you are a straight up hater. I know that word's overused. If you don't give this guy any credit, bro. Like Al Bernstein, shout out to him. Okay? He's going out of his way to tell everybody, why is Max Kellerman saying he's undisputed? No, he's not. And he's not the best in the division. I thought he lost the Martin fight. And last I checked, there's other belt holders, so he's not undisputed. I get it. He's not undisputed. Technically speaking, he's not because he doesn't have all the belts. I get it, right? But Al, where's that energy when your network is calling Tank Davis a 3-division champion? Where's that energy at? Why don't you care about the actual strap that Devin Haney has that Tank doesn't have? And why aren't you yelling to the moon? Like, last I checked, Devin Haney's the WBA champion, the real one. So why are we calling Tank Davis a world champion? Why are we putting world championship fight on the poster? Why are we calling him a 3-division champion? Why are we doing these things? Like, and I get that he can't do that because he works for Showtime. I get it. All right.
Yeah, but that's bullshit to me because call it how you see it. I mean, the company man thing, I get it. That is one of the positive things about Timothy Bradley is, we can talk about how he gets in the way of certain fights, but at least he'll call things how he sees them. But look, there are things, I talked about this after the Lomachenko fight. There are things that are objective. And objective at this point is we can't count Teofimo out in any fight anymore. It's clear at this point we've got a guy who fights up to level of competition and is capable of beating anybody at 140 or anybody coming up from 135. I would pick him against everybody at this point because I'm not going to continue to make the same mistake. The definition of insanity is what? Doing the same thing that doesn't work over and over. I'm not going to pick against Teofimo anymore in big fights. I'm just not. And there are things that are objectively true. Against him, though, there are things that are objectively true that we shouldn't be arguing. This guy's a great fighter. He's a great fighter.
I agree with that.
I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about people out there. I talked about this with the Lomachenko thing. If you can't admit now that Lomachenko is a special fighter, he didn't get the decision against Devin Haney. It was a 3.5-1 underdog. Everybody was saying, oh, he's going to get destroyed. Most people viewed he won the fight, but he's done enough at this point. What else do you need to see? Teofimo's given us the fights. Same guy, giving us the fights. He's delivering in big fights. He's a great fighter. He's a great fighter. What else do we need to see? There are objective things that are objectively true. And one of the things that unfortunately is objectively true about Teofimo is he's got this Tyson Fury syndrome to where he's just going to go off the rails in between fights and say things that are going to rub the people the wrong way. I want $100 million for my next fight, and we're going to have to deal with the ups and downs. We're going to have to deal with that. That's the frustrating part. He said
an 8-figure contract, in fairness, but
whatever he's saying, he's gonna say things that are uneven in between fights, and we're gonna have some frustration. But one thing that's the opposite of Tyson Fury is he's giving us fights, and he's giving us fights at a young age, and he's consistently doing this. So these are the two things that are objectively true. He can win any fight out there, and he's going to give us those fights. The outside of the ring stuff, he compartmentalizes it in between fights. I'm not focused on that. I don't care what he says outside the ring anymore. I don't care. I don't care. But the people out there who still need to see more, what do you need to see? What do you need? Dude, he beat Lomachenko. He beat Josh Taylor. Going into both those fights, there's no way he's going to win this fight. 9 out of 10 people are picking him to lose both fights. He wins both. He wins both. What else do you need to see? He's a special fighter. Like I said, stylistically, what I love about him is he cuts off angles. This dude's fast, and it's not that he's fast with his hands, fast with his feet. He thinks fast. The one knock on him is when things do go sideways, Kambosos fight, Sandor Martin fight, when they're not focused, it's chaos in between. They show that they can't, but when this guy, they show they can't make adjustments, but when this guy is locked in from the beginning, good luck. Good luck.
Yeah, but we have to start
when he's going in like this and walking you. That's what I was most impressed with the Josh Taylor fight is he's walking him down. This is a big 140 pounder. He is walking him down.
He was out clinching him at times, which nobody saw coming.
Yeah,
like he was getting him in the clinch, and I think Josh Taylor was kind of surprised how strong he was. I honestly think he was. And if you watch Theo, he does a lot of weight training and stuff like that. You know what I mean? So
he's explosive.
He's explosive. A lot of a lot of fast switch muscles, but he's also shown a lot of fast switch guys. Sometimes they're like that for 4 rounds, right? But after 4 rounds, they slow down, kind of like a Pascal. You know what I mean? but he could sustain the fast twitch for 12 rounds, right?
Yeah,
Which is very impressive. And
he's
after
strong.
what I saw, like on Saturday, I'm honestly thinking to myself, how the fuck you not knock out Xander Martin? You know what I mean? Like, I'm thinking to myself, where was this dude when he fought Xander Martin? And I know styles make fights, and they do. But Xander Martin should not have given Teofimo that tough of a fight. He just shouldn't have, right? And I stand by that, right? There was definitely something going on. So I want to be able to say I'll never question. I'm just going to pick him no matter what. I need to factor it in, Kyle. I need to factor in that there's like a pattern with him that goes like this. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Now the hill is not a hill. It's fucking Mount Everest.
When
he
is there, when he
like,
is there, and he'll get there again, I'm
Yeah.
not picking against him. And he's there for the big fights.
if he can get it
And he's gonna
together,
give us big fights is the point. The thing though is, does he need to get it together though?
well, no, that's the thing, right? Like I said, I like Shakespearean, like troubled souls, like, you know what I mean, like, and then they find, like, he's kind of like a character in a movie almost, like because in the movies they're not like cookie cutter nowadays. Like, he's kind of like, it almost has, maybe it just has to be this way. Maybe that's how he functions, I guess. You know what I mean? Maybe he needs the chaos. Like, do you remember like when his dad barged in the interview, and he just looks at what's his name, Kriegel? Yeah, this is what I deal with every day. He just said it so matter of factly, like, and Kriegel's like concerned. Yeah, but and he's like, no, like, it's cool. Like
Kriegel's so annoying. He's out there trying to It's just like, dude, shut up. Just shut, dude, just stop. Just stop.
Like, Dad, I got it. Like, you know what I mean? I deal with shit every day. Don't worry about it. Like, to me, it's like, damn, like, I guess, you know what I mean? Like, I mean, that's chaotic.
I can though. I can, because he shows up, man. Like, I understand there's gonna be big fights he loses in the future. I don't expect him to win every big fight. Yeah, or maybe he will, but it's clear at this dude, D-Style, I had him winning 10 rounds. I was on the extreme because I very much, one thing that's clear at this point is comparative rounds are a real thing. We saw it in the 12th round with Lomachenko. I felt he won that round because he wasn't as dominant in 10 and 11. He didn't get it. The 10th round in this fight, Teofimo landed more. He landed more power shots. He landed twice as many power shots in the 10th round. But since he threw the same amount as Josh Taylor, it was seen as he's laying up a little bit. And since he wasn't as dominant in the 10th that he was in the 8th and the 9th, they gave Josh Taylor the 10th round. I thought from the 5th round on, I couldn't find a round to give Josh Taylor. I couldn't.
Look,
so
I
when
understand.
you have a guy, but wait, when you have a guy that was, when the bell rang, ding, 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 he was a 2.5 to 1 underdog. Those odds, I witnessed it go up, up, up. It's what people were being viewed as he's mentally fragile, and those odds kept going up. And he just dominates. And this is what I'm saying. Like, there are certain guys on paper, it looks like they're going to lose this fight. It looked like he was going to lose Lomachenko. It looked like he was going to lose Josh Taylor. We talked about Carl Froch, Timothy Bradley being in the Hall of Fame. They were those guys. Mythical battles, they don't do well in, right? Teofimo shows that in the big fights, the shinier the lights are, the more he shows up. He's one of those guys. I'm not picking against him anymore. I'm not doing it. I'm not.
But check it out. He goes back to the same venue where he lost to Cambosos, right? And he puts on this great performance. By the way, comeback of the year. I don't care what anybody says. This is the comeback of the year.
Yep.
Like, I doubt anybody beats this. But and if he gets another big win, maybe fight of the year again, by the way. But here's what I want to say, man. Like, if he can get it together, like I'm telling you, and I don't want to hear, oh, he's got it together. He lost the Cambosos fight. And I'm going to say this to his credit. He's a lot better than Cambosos.
Yeah.
He should not have lost that fight. And there's a lot of people, and I don't know if you remember this, Cal, I was doing HCP shows after he lost the Cambosos fight, right? A lot of people were relishing in that moment. Like they were acting like this was great. Like, and I remember saying, man, a lot of you are kicking this dude while he's down because it's easy to kick him while he's down, right?
Mm-hmm.
How's the kicking going? Oh shit, he's back on his feet. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Now, what he needs to know, and maybe where that loss could come to him is, don't forget that. And maybe this could fuel him. They're waiting to kick you when you're down again. Like there are people out there that don't like Teofimo Lopez, right?
Such is life. Yeah.
Yeah. And they're waiting for that moment to start kicking him while he's down again. You're back on the mountaintop, right? And I think he needs to, and I think that will fuel him, and maybe that will help him stay more consistent, right? Which we haven't seen yet, right? Now there's a lot of trouble that he has outside the ring. It may affect him again. We'll see. Here's the thing. With everything equal, when outside stuff, nobody beats him at 140 pounds. Nobody. Not Taylor in a rematch. He's saying he wants a rematch. You don't beat him in a rematch. Not. I don't think Progress could beat him. Although Progress is his toughest fight.
I still would pick him. I'd pick him over Progress. Yeah.
And then you have Ramirez. Bro, he would destroy Ramirez.
Oh yeah, he knocked Ramirez out.
He annihilates Ramirez with ease. It's not even a fight. And I don't think Ramirez deserves a fight. Like, he's over here acting like he deserves a fight. Based on what?
Unifications, baby.
Unifications.
Matias is out there. Unifications.
Oh, he destroys Matias. No offense to Matias.
Matias is tough.
He's tough, but tough.
But
tough
this is the thing. Sandor and Jack Catterall are street potholes, ugly and best to be avoided. There are certain guys who are stylistic root canals, and those are two guys who are like Sandor Martin. Look what he did to the Mikey Garcia comeback. Destroyed it and easily beat him, and then gave Teofimo a tough fight. So perhaps we're being a little too harsh on, but the Kambosos fight happened. It happened. We can't.
Sandor Martin used to yig it, bro. Like, I mean, I'm just saying. Like,
yeah, the Kambosos fight happened. We can't ignore it. It happened. He lost the fight. So he's gonna have some downs likely, but I don't necessarily agree that he has to get it together. What he showed here is he can compartmentalize things. He's shown it multiple times. So there are certain guys who can lock in on a fight week, particularly as the fights are bigger. And what I would suggest is Teofimo just continue to put him in big fights, because that's where he's his best, right? He's his best. He loses concentration against lesser opposition. It's another reason I love him. And one of the things is, look, dude, I'm a fan. I'm a fan now. I mean, I don't need to see anymore. What do I preach on this channel all the time is I just want dudes to give me the fights. And if they win them, even better. He's there. I don't need to see of course, I mean, the stuff out of the ring. He's giving me what I want as a boxing fan. I'm there.
What do you make of the of the Tank fans talking about how Tank's proven he's better because he's made more money? Here's the problem when you make arguments like that. A lot of you same people are out here also tweeting that Canelo better fight Benavidez if he knows what's good for him, right? If he fights anybody else, it's a duck, right? But you don't put that same pressure on Tank. Like you guys are looking ridiculous out here. You just are. Because Canelo, if your argument to everything to defend Tank is, he's the draw, he brings in the money. Oh, he look at the money he made and compared to the little 1 million Teofimo made, right? Well, what happens when you make arguments like that? Well, I mean, I can easily just turn around and say, well, Canelo because money. What does that even mean? Right? So I don't know.
Here's what you're going to see. And this is a clear part of the Tank Davis theorem. I'm just throwing his name out there because it's the easiest example around that weight class and in boxing, in my opinion, is they build up fighters who aren't a threat. You see with Isaac Cruz, he's about to fight a fighter who's never fought in a 12-rounder. And he's been on the gravy train ever since the Tank Davis fight. See it with Raleigh, he's fed a belt. Matteo Barrios, another one. They build up the fighters who aren't a threat. They tear down the fighters who are a threat. You're going to see Leonard out there, Leonard Ellerby on Twitter saying, oh, what did Teofimo bring? Oh, small theater, small theater. What does he bring? It's the same thing he did after the Matty Barrios fight. What did he do? First thing he said was Josh Taylor brings nothing to the table. Nothing to the table. What about the belts? Is that something? What did Matty bring? He brought one Reggie belt. Of course he brings things to the table. But they're going to knock down the guys who are a true threat. And what we need to do as boxing fans is reward the fighters who are in the fights. I'll repeat it again. The guys who were doing these mythical matchups for so many times, those are the guys not fighting the fights. It's the easy thing to see. So what we are not going to do over here is hand the fighters who aren't fighting the fights mythical victories over the guys who are in there fighting the fights. And we have a clear track record with guys like Lomachenko, Haney, Teofimo. They fight the fights. That's it. And I'm going to assume that the guys who aren't fighting those guys, and those guys want to fight those guys, but they're not fighting those fights, I'm going to assume they're losing. They get no mythical victories over here. None. Zero. None. Tank ain't getting no mythical victories over here. And we'll get what we want as boxing fans if we have this attitude. Tank needs to fight the fights. That's it. He's run out of room. He's in a corner. You're telling us he's the face of boxing. He's got to do face of boxing shit. He's going to have to fight the fights. I don't care about your perceived obstacles of this guy's at that network, this guy's at that network, this manager, that promoter, that promoter. No. You're out of room now. You're in the corner. You're surrounded. Now you've got to fight the fights. Isaac Cruz rematch is not acceptable. You're going to build this guy up as a pit bull when he's doing Chihuahua shit. He's out there fighting fighters with no 12 rounders on their resume. You fed Gamboa to him. No. You're not getting away with that. They've run out of room. Isaac Cruz rematch, not acceptable. Riley Romero rematch, not acceptable. You got to fight the fights now. No excuses. None. And until you do that, you don't get that respect. I don't care what the pay-per-view dollars are. From a fan perspective, you've got to fight the fights. You've got to fight the fights. That's it.
The other thing that Leonard's leaving out is that Teofimo Lopez, Haney, these guys are young. They're like 3-4 years younger than Tank. So they got 3-4 more years to have a pay-per-view fight, Leonard, or whatever, right? I mean, like, your dude's almost 30 years old. Tank Davis is almost 30 years old, guys, right?
TO's
and they finally step him up. You know what this fan base is going to say? Oh, well, he only lost because he was old. You know what I mean? Well, he never fought nobody in his prime. It's time to step the fuck up. And by the way, can Tank win a lot of these fights? Yes, because Tank's a really good fighter. However, he needs to actually, I don't know, there's this thing called do it. You know what I mean? Like, you have to actually do it. Like actually go out there and actually do the thing. Can you call your job tomorrow and be like, come on, you know I could kill it at work, right? I really need to show up and do my job. Hey, let me just sit it out. You know I would dominate I'm your number one, worker. You know what I mean? You don't need me there. No, your boss is going to tell you, no, you need to show up and do your job, right? We're not going to pay you, right? But for some reason, Tank, he gets all the mythical wins. I saw people put polls like, oh, who would win, Tank or Juan Manuel Marquez? Just take a wild guess who the Tank David fan said would win, Kelly. He beats Marquez, okay? He beats Salvador Sanchez in a mythical 130 matchup.
I heard Willie Pep. Tank destroys Willie Pep.
Dominates Willie Pep. This would have to be at 130, right? Just destroys Eric Morales. Just annihilates.
It's not even a thought. Eric Morales got hit, right? He got hit. So, of course, he beat Eric
Morales. So, the dude lost 4 rounds to Raleigh, but Eric Morales couldn't even fathom winning a round against the dude.
Because he would pay attention versus him, yeah.
And I'll give
but look, this is the thing. Benefit of the doubt, equity. When you have benefit of the doubt, when you fight the fights, you built up equity, and you get the benefit of the doubt in mythical matchups, because there will always be matchups that are there to be
it's like a line of credit, right?
If Tank Davis or anybody else doesn't fight the fights in the division, they've been in the division for half a decade, for the love of God, we have to assume they have no equity. They have no benefit of the doubt. We have to assume they're going to lose the fights.
Hey, Tank Davis fans, who wins? Roberto Duran Or Tank Davis at 140.
Tank.
Gotcha. Like it's just, he just wins everything, bro. Like he dominates every. Like he beats Pryor, he beats Arguello or Alguello, as Spence called him. Shout out to Spence. By the way, Stephen A. Smith, Arguello never and Pryor fought at 140, bro, not 147. But that's not here nor there. But he beats everybody, bro. He beats everyone he could think of.
It's part of the theorem.
Oh, but those are just fantasy matchups. Why are you taking them so serious? Okay, fine. Okay, he beat Devin Haney by knockout. Like, you know what I mean? Like every simulation they do, every single time, he always beats Devin Haney. He always beats Teofimo. So why do the fights? Because he wins them anyway, right? Just crazy.
He beats Josh Taylor.
That's like saying
doesn't even bring anything to the table. He's a Euro.
But Calvin, that's like saying, why have sex with a bitch if you could just jerk off? Like you know what I mean? Like you could just you take her to town. You know you last an hour with her. You know you don't gotta do it. You can just whack it off. Like that's what they're doing.
Whoa.
They're whacking it off and trying to tell us that the dude's smashing. Like no. You gotta actually go do it. Go do it. Go fucking do it. I'm just saying. All right? I don't want to hear how you could beat Juan Manuel Marquez in a fictional matchup at 135. Right? Mm-hmm. I don't want to hear about how Hawk would have no smoke with you. I don't want to hear it, bro. I don't want to hear how he knocks out Haney in the second round. About nobody can take his power. If they can't take your power, show it in the motherfucking ring.
Look, the thing is, I was thoroughly impressed with Teofimo on Saturday based off of what I was expecting going in and what he accomplished in the ring. And now he's done it in big fights twice, lineal twice. He's a 2-division lineal champion at 25. Much respect to him. Twice he fought the guy. Once he fought the guy with no live gate when he had every excuse not to fight that fight. And Lomachenko had every excuse not to defend there. And they did it. Respect to the fighters fighting the fights, but I love when I'm shocked. I love when I'm surprised. And I'm watching the fight, and as the fight's going on, I'm watching Josh Taylor not make adjustments, and I thought Teofimo was going to be in that spot. I love getting on here and eating crow. I love getting on here and saying, I was completely wrong about that, because we need more stuff like that in boxing. The more we pull fights from paper and put them into reality, the more we have of that, the healthier the sport is. Like, yeah, I didn't see that coming. That's what happens, fellas, when we do less mythical matchups and do more actual fights. I'm a college football fan, huge college football fan. I witnessed my Tennessee Volunteers beat Alabama and a couple weeks later lose to unranked South Carolina and lose badly. And that's what happens when you have a proper sport where you're forced into fighting the fights. It's why we like the lower weight class, right? Because lower weight classes, these fighters, due to the pay scale, are forced into actual fights. Tougher fights, big fights. Upper weight class is not as much. So when we get fights like this where a big fight's happening, everything looks like Teofimo's off there and Josh Taylor has everything together upstairs and it's going to be a mental mismatch, and Teofimo comes in sharp and he's the one constantly ahead of the curve and Josh Taylor can't adapt to it. I love seeing stuff like that. I love seeing something where, whoa, and I talk about it all the time on the channel. I don't come in the door saying I'll never like that guy, ever, except if it's Raleigh Romero, right? Extreme example. But if David Benavidez fights Plant and then fights Morrell Jr. and fights these fights, I'm there. I'm there for it. Good for him. I'll become a fan.
Yeah.
I don't come in the door saying I'm not going to like that guy and I'm going to build. I'm not going to observe the truth, and I'm going to move everything around the truth to keep this lie going. If a guy starts doing what I want as a fan, I'm going to be a fan, no matter where he comes from.
Exactly. Look, I wouldn't take the retirement announcement too serious. He obviously is looking for a better contract, right? And I do believe they're going to fork it out, to be honest with you. I think they will. You know what I mean? I think it's not going to be 100 million, but it's going to be a good amount of money, and I honestly don't blame him. Like you're fighting the tougher fights, and you're seeing other guys, because I don't want to hear, but he's fighting at the theater. Well, Haney was fighting in front of empty seats, okay, before the Loma fight.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? What does that even mean? You know what I mean? Like all I'm saying is reward the fighters that take the risk. That's what I want. I want guys to have both. I want them to make money, but I also want the resume, and I think it goes hand in hand. Like, who's the highest paid athlete in boxing? Canelo, and he has a resume. You know what I mean? Like, and I think that's if there's a blueprint to follow, why not follow that one? Look at all the money he's making. You know what I mean? And he's got the resume to boot. Like, so follow that. That's my advice to everyone out there as fans. Just focus on the fighters taking the risk, the fighters that are taking the challenges that other fighters are just not doing. And as a fan, don't assist the corruption. Don't say things like, why would he fight him? That's dumb. I'd rather, if I was him, I would fight Raleigh and make the same amount of money, and it's a lot easier. Why are you, as a boxing fan, saying those things?
Right.
And for the dude in the chat, who says these things? Bro, I'm talking about polls I seen like on social media. Like, I'm not making, like, you know what I mean? Like, people know what I'm talking about. These tank polls where he wins every poll. You know, like from tank fans that they're talking about how he could beat Haney. So, like, they don't flat out say he doesn't have to beat Haney. He'll beat him anyway. Like, they don't say that. But that's what they're insinuating half the time, right? Well, the real man, we know that the dude is Tank, really. You know what I mean? No, actually, no, I don't know that, right?
Right.
Remember the Patriots remember the Patriots Giants when the Patriots were undefeated?
Yeah. Giants
Nobody
won.
thought the Giants were going to win. Nobody. But what happened? Like they pulled it off, right?
I remember the Super Bowl down here when the Rams, Kurt Warner, they were supposed to destroy the Patriots. Patriots start their dynasty with an upset.
Yeah.
With an upset.
Yeah, they did. Although I heard they stole plays, but it's not here nor there, right?
Yeah. Deflated balls.
You do what you got to do. You know what I mean? You lie, you cheat, you steal, you have to. But man, it's been a good show.
Appreciate everybody for rolling through in the chat. We'll be back on D Styles channel tomorrow evening.
Yes, sir.
Usually about 7 Central, 6 Central, maybe.
Like that, yeah.
So HCP, the big show. So stay tuned. We'll be there, and I'll email everybody the time on the mailing list. So appreciate everybody for coming through. Big fight weekend. Munguia, Derevyanchenko, possible fight of the year, and Teofimo is back. The Takeover 2.0. He is back. So appreciate everybody rolling through. We are out. Happy Monday.
Peace.
Oh, wait, let me get to the super chat really quick. HLD came in. Who's had the most shocking, most memorable fights at lightweight and super lightweight in the last 10 years?
That's Teo.
Teo.
Yeah.
Teo.
He walked us into that one. You know what I mean? It is what it is. But
appreciate HLD and appreciate all the super chats today. We are out. God bless. Peace.